You were beaten, you were abused, you were raped by your father. We watched those experiences in a very moving documentary when you talked about your life. The staggering thing was the lack of bitterness you seemed to feel towards your father. You didn't seem to despise him in spite of what he'd done.
No, I never despised my father or my stepmother. I realise there is so much hurt and upset going in the world, and being bitter wouldn't achieve anything, it wouldn't change anything. So I don't think that I've really got that inside me to be bitter.
You still loved your father through your childhood in spite of the kind of childhood you were having?
Yes, I did still love my father.
Can you explain that? It's an amazing thing to think of.
When I was younger, I was with my father an awful lot, and we started together. And the regime in the household, the way we were brought up, to me, that was love.
How can it have been love to be abused sexually and physically? How can you equate that, or did you equate that with
I wasn't
love?
aware of being abused. That was the only kind of affection that I knew, that I was brought up with. My father, he never hit me at all. He was always there, and I remember when I was little, I said to my father, one day I'm going to marry you, Dad, which is what a lot of little girls say, I believe. And I just adored my dad. I can't really truly answer that question because it's just something that's been inside me and I've grown up with.
Oliver James, you're a psychiatrist. Can you give us some insight into this? I understand it's quite or relatively common for an abused child to still have huge affection for its parents.
Well, I mean, we obviously wouldn't think of Fred West as being a complete monster, but it would seem he wasn't a total monster, that he was capable of some affection and so forth. But obviously, for poor Anne-Marie's situation that she was in was like it being in 1984, where love is hate. As one of the slogans in 1984, it's a totalitarian system where your identity is completely subsumed and you're completely taken over and controlled. And obviously, fear, the whole thing is run by fear. And I don't know if you would agree with this, Anne-Marie, but you must have been in a state of fear a lot of the time, I would have thought, not necessarily of your father, perhaps, but of Rose, maybe.
My stepmother, she had a stare that I can't explain it, you just have to look down, you couldn't look her in the eyes.
Terrifying woman.
Yes.
And she could petrify you, almost turn you into stone with her looks.
Well, like I say, with any of us, if she gave us a certain look, then we just put our heads down and...
Yes, and it might be that you're still somewhere in your mind and that it's safer for you to say that you love her and say that you love your father than to... Do you see what I mean? That it's still very, very dangerous for you to express any individuality or any aggression or hostility towards them, because at any minute they could come and get you in your mind.
No, I don't think so. No.
It's not like that.
No, it's just inside.
This is obviously a huge amount of work that you've got to do in the years to come to work out what your real feelings are. A tabloid newspaper this week has accused your family of being a sort of incestuous family and said that Fred was seduced by your mum. Is that something you knew about or were aware of?
No. Where they got that from, I mean, that's a mystery to me.
Could it have been true?
Not as far as I'm aware.
No knowledge of it at all?
No. Because that was it. You were brought up. You didn't mention sex in this. That was the way it was. You were brought up the same way the parents was brought up.
Was sex a taboo in your house?
Oh, you weren't allowed to mention the word sex. I think Mum and Dad had very strong morals on the way we should be brought up.
Well, out of all of this, Oliver James, and we can't go much further into the psychological makeup of what went on, but what would be your best guess as to what happened here? Were they like that, and then they met each other, or what was the thing that caused them to go on to become two of this century's most notorious criminals?
Well, there was. I'm convinced. I think everybody thinks it must be likely, but there was a special chemistry between them. There's a psychiatric illness called folie à deux, which means it's French for basically getting two mad people together. And I think that when Fred met Rosie, he will have actually. Been a very dominating person who had a sort of quite a fantastical view of the world, which he would have convinced her of. Then gradually she became a dominant person. Now, there were certain things they had very strongly in common. They were both sex addicts. They were obsessed with sex with young girls. There were a whole lot of things that they obviously shared, and I suspect that they challenged each other to go further and further to greater depths of depravity. But they were very clever about it, and they kept.
Anne-Marie, is this ringing any bells with you? Do you see that you talked in the documentary about this hold they seem to have over each other?
Yes, with my father and my stepmother, I mean, Rosemary used to walk around with nothing on, and we were used to it. She didn't like any of us covering ourselves up. She banned any of us from wearing jeans. We had to wear skirts. I do feel that they loved each other so much. They doted on each other. They were inseparable. There was no secrets at all between them because they used to do everything together.
Thank you for that. We come on after Why.